Okay, we'll call the meeting to order at 7:15. First is the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Roll call. Do you want me to do it, Doug?
I've got it here.
Oh,
I
you
took
have
the sheet
it.
today.
Okay.
Ms. Bollenbacher.
Here.
Mr. Chandler. Here. Ms. Compitello is not here. Mr. Lavasser. Here. Mr. Marks is absent. Mr. Oliverio.
Here.
Mr. Radilla. Here. Mayor Perry.
Here.
Solicitor Corbel.
Here.
Engineer Minsterman.
Here.
And myself. We have a quorum.
Great. All right, the consent agenda. So on the OneDrive were the minutes from September 22nd, 2022, and also the bill list from October 13th to 2022. The minutes had one change that I had sent to everybody, which was the vote from the last meeting on Michael Gallis for the Recreation Board. This changed my recommendation, change it to 6-0 vote versus 7-0 because there were only 6 council members here. So that's the only change. So a motion to approve the October 13th, 2022 consent agenda with the change in the minutes that were uploaded on the OneDrive as described.
So moved.
Vince, second, Aaron, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right. Public comments. At this time, citizens may address the Crafton Borough Council on any issue appearing on today's agenda. Only residents and taxpayers of the Borough of Crafton will be permitted to address the council. Comments on non-agenda items will be taken at the end of tonight's meeting. Speakers will be permitted to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes. Groups of people will be required to designate a spokesperson to represent them before the council, who may speak for a maximum of 5 minutes. Please sign in or raise your hand on Zoom and state your name and physical address for the record. We will start with the people that are here. So do we have anybody signed in? Okay.
Charlene Cranky, 800 Clearview Avenue. It's about the stop sign again. I have one more comment to add to last time. If you change the stop signs and make Bradford a go through stop and Crafton Boulevard a throughway, I think you're undoing what you're doing with the streetscaping, and you're going to make it's still going to be a speedway. I think with the way the stop sign is now is better.
All right, great. Thank you. Anybody on Zoom to raise their hand? No raised hands. Okay. Engineers report. Update on our current projects.
Yes, I have a couple items for you tonight. To highlight some of the projects that are in most plain sight or of most interest to most residents. Crafton Boulevard, the Crafton Boulevard project. So the contractors completed the curb, concrete sidewalk and pavement installation all the way down to the elementary school parking area. The lights were installed in August. They're currently working on finalizing the landscaping and really completing this project. There's a punch list walk that'll be completed toward the end of October. So that remains to be scheduled. And just to look at every little item, chipped concrete, any kind of discoloration, all the little things that matter to make sure the appearance is great. And then the contractor will have sufficient time, and depending on the season, if it's grass related, obviously we're going to need a growing season to correct any of those issues. But in general, the project will be complete by the end of October. And also just letting you know that, or letting everyone know and be reminded that there is a ribbon cutting for the project itself. I believe it's on the 28th at, is it 10 a.m. or 10:30?
Yes.
10 a.m. So anyway, that project is something to be very proud of. It kills a lot of birds with just that one project, so not literally.
May I ask a question? May I ask a question?
Sure.
Rick, does, the closeout on this project, does it include, line painting, right?
Yes, of course.
Okay,
Yep.
just hadn't mentioned it, just wanted to,
And that's gonna be this year as well. So
Okay.
all the parts.
so that's done by
Double
someone
line.
other than the contractors that are here.
They'll have a sub for that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Rick.
Good point.
Could you ask the traffic engineer to see if we had in the detail for reflective paint versus just regular paint? That's something that's always of concern in the region and actually across the Commonwealth. So I was just wondering if there's reflectance specified. Thank you.
Will do. I know that it will meet whatever PennDOT standards there are. I don't know that that's required yet, but I'll find out. Okay, next is Woodlawn and Fountain. I just bring that up because that's another significant project that is complete. I believe the punch list walk was this week. Did you guys walk this week, or was it planned for this week? Woodlawn Fountain?
We did that 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks, okay.
Yeah, I don't think the final walkthrough's been, we had a preliminary walkthrough.
Okay. So that's another, good project, just that it is complete, other than some minor details. And it's funny because, that last 10% or 5% of any project just seems to take the longest, and that's no exception with construction. So anyway, all those little details will be attended to. And then just an update on the Broadhead Grow Grant. Just give you some stats. The Alcosan had issued the Cycle 7 award letter for that project. If you remember that was another stormwater separation project that was part of the very initial several years ago when these sort of low-hanging fruit projects were evaluated for stormwater separation, but also to improve roadways. And so once again, getting many bangs out of one buck. So the stats here are that the eligible costs associated with the project, 4.6 million, which you received an 81% grant match, 3.7 million, with your share 0.9 million. So we'll continue to work on that. I believe in the future, another meeting or two, it'll be on your agenda to accept that grant. I think it's through resolution. So just recommend that you do that for sure. And that once again, that is very exciting news. You continue to win grants. Alcosan has said on many occasions, Crafton is absolutely the poster child for Borough, and that you guys are far exceeding any other community in grants, especially relating to the size of your community. So they love Crafton, and they talk highly of Crafton.
Rick, with regards to the number of dollars granted this cycle, did you say the percentage that we garnered in this cycle? 'Cause I think
81%. You got
No.
81% of the eligible funds.
We were over 50%.
so. Of the funds that were awarded in the cycle, Crafton garnered the most by far of any municipality, and I think it represented of total dollars awarded over 40% of the dollars awarded in the site. 40% of the dollars awarded. So that's a very big, contribution and investment that we could see from Alcosan. And it just shows the forethought of the community and our engineers to put together projects like this. But one thing I did want to note is, the goals of the GROW program are changing now that the tunnels are going to be built, which is a good thing. However, it's been of a moving target here when they change the models, and I know that's something that's important for the community to understand. And I hope we get updated information that the engineer can share with council as a whole here, so we can make more informed decisions on how to direct Gateway as to, what projects do we pursue in the future, given the new modeling that's come out. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's a great point. That's what I was actually gonna lead into next is, so it's sort of two-pronged. The first prong was the foresight of knowing that the consent order was coming, knowing that Crafton had some areas that were very frequent and voluminous and overflow, not only volume, but just number of events. So the projects that were designed, and I was going to mention that just some preliminary evaluations in the modeling that we're doing as a requirement for the consent order, as showing that those projects are making a significant impact. So we're quantifying that now. It'll take another month or two to get through it, but we're excited about what's happening as it relates to the amount of reduction that we're seeing in those areas. And the projects were, even though we didn't have all the data exactly saying what were the best places to put these projects, what were the best overflows, we must have got lucky because we hit them right on the nose. So we hit the worst overflows, which means the most overflows. And those projects were very effective, and we still have Broadhead as well. So that's also going to make a great impact. That project actually will do more than Crafton Boulevard, which was huge in itself. So just wanted to let you know that stuff is not only paying off, but you know, it's very successful. Now I can tell you there are projects that were awarded, and we have one, we think, that we did a project and we're not seeing any reduction. So it's not necessarily that there was a mistake, it's that these things are very dynamic. So a lot of times what happens when you remove a volume of water from the sewer system, what happens sometimes is that the pipe now has more room to take on other water that wasn't getting into the system because the pipe was full. So that sounds crazy, but that's what's happening. So you need another project now that there's a new source of inflow into the pipe to stop that.
So are you speaking, you're not speaking of one of our projects here in
No,
Crafton?
no,
I
it's a
just wanted
different
to make
project.
that perfectly
Yeah,
clear.
my point was, these are not all 100% slam dunks. Just because you get a grant to do a project doesn't mean it's going to reduce your flows. So in your cases, they were significant reductions. At least that's what we're seeing preliminarily. So I just wanted to bring that to light, that these are not slam dunk projects. Now, that project wasn't mine, certainly, that that didn't perform well. But like I said, it's not a mistake. It's just that the dynamics of these are very difficult. So the second prong of that approach now is we know where once we're done with our final analysis and modeling, we'll know where we still have room to get better. We'll know what overflow it is. So now we can target those specific areas for growth. So hit a home run on the first one. Now we got to go back and see where the areas are that we could still use some improvement, and then go after and find projects in that area to get funded for.
Right, so can you just like give us a really, really quick about the consent order? If I recall from the meeting that, you know, the ultimate goal is 85%.
85%
Right.
capture in your.
And then in
overflows,
the new consent order, it's a minimum of, we need to improve a minimum of 10% from where we are.
yes. If you can't reach 85%.
If we can't reach 85%. And we're in striking range on some of those, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Sorry, that was a long summer.
Mhm.
That's it.
Great. All right, president's report. I have two items. One is that we will be having an executive session, as Mr. Corvall announced at the last meeting, after this meeting tonight, to discuss real estate issues and a personnel matter. Also, the council meeting for 1 month from now is November 24th. That is Thanksgiving. So we have the option to either attend for Thanksgiving or to move that meeting. And what's that? I don't think anybody will want to come to the exciting meeting. So the option is to move it to the day before, which is that Wednesday, the 23rd. We can move it to an earlier time that day, that night, or still keep it at the same time. So does anybody have any issues with the November 3rd?
I won't be there that day.
No.
I will also not be there on Wednesday.
Let's see. Two people we don't have.
Sorry, I was trying to unmute. I won't be able to do Wednesday.
Okay.
Mr. President, can we move the meeting to November 30th, a Wednesday, or
Well, we have, that affects the budget too. Right, but for the advertising and everything for the budget.
Technically, we want to have the budget, approved. What the phrase of the first meeting in December? Yes, so.
It won't do anything from an advertising perspective or anything of that nature, just an extra week in between council discussion.
So the 30th is a Wednesday. There's also the Thursday, or there's back-to-back meetings because we have a meeting on the 8th and potentially the 22nd of December.
Oh, and typically what we try and do is avoid the one on the 22nd.
Yeah, but we'll talk about that one for later. So I guess the options are, if we have people that can't do the 23rd, or if that week is, we can move it to the following week. It can be, the 29th, the 30th, or the 1st. I could also, if you want to check your appointments, we can decide at the next meeting too. Correct.
well, what about Monday, the 21st?
That could be an option.
It does, but we have our council meeting on the 17th. Is that a worthwhile date to have council meetings only a few days apart?
No. Okay. For November. This is November. So does the 21st not work for anybody? At 7:15 or 6:30 or 7 or? Okay, so 6:30 PM. We can, do we just want to make sure, and then at our next meeting, confirm it? I think our next meeting will be October 27th, so that would be a month. So we're able to do that, plenty of time. Okay. So we will vote at our next meeting to move that meeting to the 21st at 6:30. Just make sure everybody checks that, and if it's good, then we can. So no Thanksgiving meeting. Okay. That is all I had. So the mayor's report.
So I understand that we have to address some new regulations with regarding to the fireworks law. I'd like to have the solicitor. I know we've talked about it in some of the past meetings, but tonight is the night that we have it on the agenda to discuss in a little more detail. So if our solicitor could outline what our options are, and then we can open up the discussion.
I will be happy to. So currently your ordinance bans fireworks in Crafton unless you have a permit to display them. That's chapter 117, I believe. So the update to the fireworks law basically gives you 3 or 4 options, the fourth being do nothing. But I can tell you that given the language that's in our ordinance, we'll have to change something because you can only ban, which is one of the 3 options. So I'll just tell you that first. You can ban the fireworks. These are consumer fireworks. They're the ones you can buy at the roadside stand, at Phantom Fireworks. They are not the fireworks that the borough sets off at any 4th of July or you see on any of those celebration days. Those are called display fireworks. They're not regulated by that law. And then the other two options are you allow fireworks, but require anybody that's setting them off to obtain a permit from the borough for a fee, or that you ban them except for several days during the year that are outlined in the law. There's around Memorial Day, around Labor Day, around 4th of July and New Year's Eve, that they would be permitted to be set off on those days. Currently, the ban, if you wanted to ban fireworks, you have to be able to establish that there is essentially no place within the borough where you can safely set off fireworks. And the law defines that as an area that is 150 feet from a structure or a vehicle. So, you know, in a denser community like Crafton, there may be very few places and that you could do it, other than perhaps parklands that are owned by the borough, which you wouldn't want folks going on there to set off their fireworks anyway. So, and you're permitted to ban fireworks on your property separate from this law. So obviously we could have Gateway or somebody do that and study that if you wanted to.
So to add to that,
Yeah.
the chief and I have spoken about that. And the chief has basically said there really is no place, as you say, that isn't owned by the borough, where it is safe, where it's 150 feet away from any building, any structure. He also says that, you know, because we know that we hear fireworks on, you know, around the holidays that people set them off. And he does say that our officers do their best to enforce, and, you know, as they're out and they see them, or if they're called on it, that they do enforce it.
That's good. And this just gives the police better, I think, standards to enforce versus the way the law was before. If we want to ban them, as the chief has indicated, we have to confirm that there really isn't a place that can happen. That would be part of our legislative findings. I probably want a study or a statement from the engineer, something that says that as part of the ordinance, and then we can ban them. But the law is pretty clear that you have to establish that. You can't ban them just because you don't want them. You have to establish that 150-foot rule would basically prohibit them from anywhere in the borough. So
Question about that. We do have some properties that are very large or steep and kind of go into hillside. What would happen if we did that study and we found that there were, you know, a couple of properties that had little edges of their property that actually were 150 feet away? What would happen next?
I mean, we'd take a look at it and see how much area that really is. But if it's de minimis, I think you could continue to move forward, or really not usable if it's steep slopes or something. The law isn't clear, so we would have to make a judgment call.
So our current ordinance is that they're banned, but it's not.
Yeah, we would have to, in order for that to continue to stay on the books, we would have to make a legislative finding. So we'll have to update it no matter what.
Okay.
It does say you can get a permit at this point too, so. And it doesn't delineate, this is old. I mean, this is from, when did I see that this was passed? I guess it doesn't say. But this is old in the sense that it doesn't even differentiate between consumer fireworks and display fireworks, it just says fireworks.
That's our ordinance.
Yes.
So at a minimum, we'd have to update the ordinance to reflect the differentiation between the two.
Yes, for sure, absolutely. So really the direction from council is, do you want us to investigate whether or not they can be banned completely? Or are you more interested in banning them except for those certain occasions?
So my question is, why can't we just differentiate, limit it to the type of consumer fireworks and still keep the permit schema. And that permit schema would require the appropriate setbacks if you were to apply for it. And then in the event that the police have the opportunity to have an enforcement action, that's where, you know, you would exert your effort. Because I think it always comes back to, we have a unlimited ability to monitor everything.
So I think that makes sense if there are, in Ms. Compatello's example, there are more than just a few areas where it's possible. Then I think the fallback is ask for a permit. And then when you look at, you know, somebody comes in from Noble or somebody comes in from whatever street and says, I want to apply for a fireworks permit, you're going to be able to deny it because they are more than, not more than 150 feet. And you can't just pick a corner of a lot on a steep slope and set off fireworks there unless you own the property or have written permission from property owner. So I think that's definitely the fallback, but I do think it's safer to ban it if we're able to. And then it's pretty clear to folks in the community what they can and can't do. Versus just saying, come in and apply for a permit and then we'll tell you no.
I just have a different philosophy, which is you can put as many laws on the books, but then it comes down to enforcement actions and how you're going to strategically enforce. And we all know what happens on the holidays. You know, there's a limited number of Pittsburgh police, Ingram and Crafton police to police that. And is that where we want to focus our efforts? And from a analysis standpoint, it'd be very easy for Ryan Berner at Gateway to take the county 911 data set from Act 9 and build buffers around the same. So either way, you can buffer it out pretty quickly and have something that staff can look at. And but if you want to do the ban, I think what you're going to find is people are going to break the law regardless. That's my opinion. Thank you.
It'll just be harder to enforce though, because the police go to, if they get a complaint or they see something happening and they go to it, they won't know
Unless they're still.
unless there is some kind of documentation to tell them, like they'll have to ask to see a permit. Person might say they have one, but they don't have it on them. They're not going to be able to stand around taking measurements. It just
But you know what's really
makes it
great?
harder.
We have a wonderful GIS system that we should be using. And I'd really love for the police to use those resources, Mayor Perry, because that's a good.
That may be impractical, given what they have in the cars.
Yes, a
their other
computer is so
systems.
impractical.
We can look into it, but they, you know, they have, you know, they're wired to other networks with other law enforcement software. So I'll look into it, but
If they're going to use GIS in their patrol cars, they would need to have data enabled tablets in their patrol cars, which would need.
The wonderful
data.
thing is they have computers. And they should have access to this because this points to another issue that we have. Which is we have, pardon me, hold on, I'm speaking. The issue is we have other things that are going on in the municipality, such as emergency one calls. And that data is not readily available to the police. And my vision would be for that data to be available to those officers, because there are eyes and ears every day, walking the beat, patrolling the neighborhood. And I think it would be great for the Crafton PD to be plugged into the resources that we're spending tax dollars to document. And we've made a lot of progress over the past 60 days with American Water and People's Natural Gas and with Gateway. So the point being is, I think there's more than an ample opportunity to have the GIS portal open to the police and actually open to the public so people can see where they can and cannot use, you know, fireworks or anything else. Because I just think, you know, we have the resources and this is a way to get people to start embracing the resources and use them not only for fireworks, but a number of other things such as, you know, we have a fire pit ordinance, and that's also something very difficult for them to monitor. And are they going to go to the office and pull it? So I just really want to see the mayor's office and the engineer's office, administration, to lean into the digital resources that the council has been investing in over the past several years. That's it. Thank you.
May I remind you that the topic is the fireworks law. Let's talk about this at another time.
It's
And-
information management. Thank you.
The subject is the fireworks.
All right, so I'd like to hear what other council folks, Colton and Aaron and Vince,
Well,
any
I've-
thoughts?
A quick question first, they can formulate their questions, but how much effort would it take to do that buffer study? Our engineers should have the GIS layers of all of our structures. How much effort would that take? It should be a pretty quick buffer study.
Any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm all for doing the buffer study and potentially banning the fireworks.
Aaron or Colton?
I think that's a reasonable way to go. I mean, it does seem kind of, I do feel like we're probably gonna find out that there really is nowhere to safely set off fireworks. So just to clean up the wording and what we already have, I think we'll be fine.
Is it, Colton, did you have anything?
Nope, nothing to add, just I agree.
So I think if the regulations are saying 150 feet is a safe distance away from structures, and I think that's important as we look at it to say 150 doesn't mean your backyard, that you can set them off. Personally, somebody near my backyard set them off and they shot all around, kids, everything, and lots of accidents happen. When we have this, I know there's issues with dogs and pets and the wildlife and everything else. When we have these fireworks, we do provide fireworks for people to see. So it's really, I think it comes down to, unfortunately, a little bit of people's own preferences and what they like to do in some cases, which are, they love fireworks or they don't. So we can have a motion, somebody make a motion to do any of the options. We can have further study done, which can also be another motion.
Can I suggest something else?
Yeah.
It may be a fairly quick study to do this study, but it would still be a few hours of our engineers' time. We have some excellent resources at our disposal, including Google Earth, which is free. I'm skeptical that there are no areas in this town that actually qualify for that. I can think of a few places that might not pass that test. I wouldn't mind taking a look with the resources we have at our disposal first to do a check on some of the areas we expect might not pass the 150-foot rule. And then if we think that it is too close for us to measure on our own, then we can proceed to an official study. But if we do a quick look on our own and we find that there are clearly areas where it does seem like the properties are large enough that people would have room in their backyard, I can think of a part of town that I think might meet that qualification. I would suggest I would like to look into that myself first before we have our engineer put their time into it.
Yeah, so if they meet the qualification, then I have no problem with them setting them off as long as they have the permit. I think I don't see an issue with that.
Yeah, then you would, yeah, then at that point, if there are safe areas, then I think the step is the permit, right? Do you want to have the permit available all year long or just on those certain holiday times, right? That's the next decision in the decision tree, not for tonight, but that would be where you would have to make a call in the future.
So I have a question. We talked about de minimis with 37 or 3,800 properties. What would be considered de minimis?
Let's wait and see what it says first. It's hard to say. It's like, well, you know when you see it.
So if you think about 150 feet, it's really 300 feet in the circumference.
Because it goes around.
So it's a football
not
field
just-
all the way around
Right.
it. That's a big area.
So it's
If you're
not
taking
just
off
your
steep slopes.
backyard, because it's the
No.
other people that are on the other side of. it.
Right, so if you're standing in a spot that you can't be within 150 feet in any direction, so technically that's 300 feet width.
Mhm.
So that's 200 by 200 is an acre.
Mhm.
So it's even less. It's greater than an acre of open accessible property.
Mhm.
So it's unlikely. I didn't think it was at first, but with that revelation, it's probably not a lot of places that are over an acre.
Does it take trees into account too?
It would have to.
I mean, it should, but
Not
it's
from
not
the
in the law,
measure.
right?
Correct. Not from the measurement. 150 is from the structure. Or vehicle. Which those are mobile. As you know. But I think the easiest way to start to look at this is with the structure.
So what were you saying, or vehicle?
Well, the law says 150 feet of a structure or a vehicle.
So then we would consider any roadway that there could potentially be a vehicle?
Yes, but the law does ban fireworks from streets, sidewalks, parking lots, publicly owned facilities.
Well, setting them off there,
Yes,
but when we look at the 150 feet, are we looking at distance from a public roadway?
I would look at the structures initially.
Okay.
So have as our options. Currently, our law or our ordinance is a ban, but it's not sufficient based on the new Pennsylvania law. So our options are to do further investigating on what 150 feet looks like. Make a motion and go through and pass something relative to a ban or specific dates, or people getting permits. Does anybody want to do anything? Yes, we definitely have to do something because we have to change our current.
I believe the law goes into effect this month.
Mhm.
So sooner the better. And I had this conversation with another client last night. They basically, they're ready to dig into their budget and they don't want to deal with it. They just had a real contentious issue. So they said they're going to deal with it at the beginning of next year. They're mostly worried about it, 4th of July. No, that's fine. I mean, some of those provisions are state law, right? They are out there. Our police could enforce some of those provisions out if they needed to. But yeah, and I think if there's, without any objection, if you want the informal review to happen, we don't necessarily need a motion. You could sort of just do a head nod on that as long as there aren't any objections. And then we can come back in 2 weeks and go to the next step and maybe have motions on the agenda so people are ready to chat.
Does it exclude sparklers and,
No, those are different.
okay, sparklers and snake things and all that?
Yeah.
Okay. So the options are to make any motion relative to the 3 items that are our options for PA, or, you know, an informal head nod to do a little bit more investigating within these next 2 weeks to then set up a motion for our next meeting.
I'm fine with a little bit of investigation.
Okay. All right. So,
And
you're right, exactly, that was my next question. Yes,
Let's compromise.
okay. Okay.
That sounds fun. Sure.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
Ms. Perry?
That's it.
All right, okay, you're coming up next too. Okay, solicitors report.
The only other thing I'll add is I'll be transmitting Act 57 ordinance to Doug to distribute to everybody. We talked about this a month or 2 ago. That's we have to adopt something by January. It's just a form ordinance. It's not a big deal, but I'll have Doug put it on your next agenda. You can authorize me to advertise it just so we can adopt it before the end of the year. And I think that's it.
Can you mention anything about the Post Gazette in advertising?
Oh, I can, yes. So as you all may know, the Post Gazette is on strike for some of their production and delivery aspects. So they're not producing a hard copy newspaper, which causes problems under the laws pertaining to public notice for every municipal entity. So you all are in a position where my recommendation was that we would advertise in the Post Gazette, because they're allowing you to advertise for free. So if it's just in a digital copy, they won't charge you, is what I've been told. But then you have the prospect that if they do settle the strike and it publishes, then you get the benefit of that, right? Number two, choosing an alternative publication. I did suggest the Gazette 2.0 perhaps around here. And I know that they publish every other week, I believe. So we just might have to be a little more ahead of the times with respect to advertising deadlines, et cetera. So you have to think, like 3 or 4 weeks out rather than 1 or 2 weeks out with the Post Gazette, because they don't publish as often. And then lastly, just making sure that we're posting all of our public notices on our website in a way that's easily accessible and can be found by the public. And then I think at that point, we have an argument that we've made a good faith effort to comply with the law and the spirit of the law. And, if somebody wants to try to argue against that, well, we can let them, but we just don't have any other, there is no options other than saying, I can't advise you to not do anything for the rest of the year, because you have to advertise things around your budget, et cetera. Like things will come to a grinding halt. So that's been my advice. Use the PG. I don't find an alternate publication, preferably one in your community, but if not, one that's adjacent to your community. And thirdly, post on the internet.
Can we use the Trib?
No, because
No.
they're only online. That's why nobody uses the Trib anymore. There are some Trib
Oh, okay.
like subsidiary papers that publish,
Yeah.
but none that are nearby here.
Okay.
We're in a pickle. Like, if you talk to Dan Deasy or Wayne Fontana, having some sort of amendment to the law to allow public notice outside of print publications would be very helpful and timely. And, I think getting with the 21st century, not many people even get the newspaper anymore. So there are bills floating around in Harrisburg, but they just usually fade and nothing happens. So the newspaper lobby must be very strong. So
Do we have to vote? I know this was part of the reorganization meeting that we had to vote on this. Does this require a vote at all?
no, it does
Okay.
not. No.
Okay. So I think if we're all in agreement, that we go with the solicitor's advice, which is to advertise online for free, use the Gazette 2.0 and the website for our announcements. Okay.
At least you have a one in your town. There's other communities that
Don't have anything. Yeah.
like in McCandless. I'm like, I don't know, Butler Eagle. Like, what do you use? Anyway,
We have the Green Tree Times too.
what's
There's
that?
two. Yeah.
Is that a
like
Trib?
Mhm.
I don't know if it's a Trib or not.
No, it's
Okay.
independent.
Is it?
Mhm.
That could work too.
Does it count
We could
though
have
if
that.
it's not circulated in this area? I mean, do they even cover our
Well, it
borough?
does.
It
Well,
is
that's,
speculated.
it has to, in order to be quote, general circulation, it has to publish at least weekly and be sold at retail in your community. So, the Gazette 2.0 doesn't meet that definition. The Green Tree, whatever,
monthly.
probably doesn't meet
It's
that
monthly.
definition. But we're still saying, publish it in something that's in your community
Yeah.
or immediately adjacent. That's sort of, again, the good faith effort argument that we want to be able to make. So
Okay.
if the Green Tree has a better publication deadline for something that we could probably use it.
Okay. Anything else?
I do not have any.
All right, managers report.
There's a written report in the OneDrive. I've got nothing further tonight.
All right, thank you. Standing committees, Finance and Administration, Ms. Perry.
Turn the microphone on for this one. So what we have on the agenda today is to begin to look at our 2023 budget. The Finance Committee, Aaron and Vince sit on that with me. As we looked at everything that the manager and the financial consultants had worked on, we decided that the best route would be to start by taking a look at our proposed capital expenditure budget, since that is the area that will have the most questions, the most discussion, and really the most discretion for council. But what I want to emphasize that what we have here, let me pass them around. Is what we have here is a worksheet that is really for discussion purposes, and it has on the sheet the not proposed recommended numbers that are a combination or collaboration between the engineering committee and the finance committee. And so what we've done is we've arranged these in, kind of order of what have we got on tap right now that we're wrapping up that may have some carryover into 2023, then the list of things that will be new in 2023. And towards the bottom of the list, we have some things that have been under discussion, that, have grants in the works, that that are not likely to be in the 2023 budget, but we want those, on tap and visible to council. So what I like to do
Can
is
this be shared? Because Colton can't see it. And
I did email
neither
it
the
to
public.
Okay.
Oh,
Up to you if you want to make it public. It's a working document for council.
mhm.
It's not a public record.
Yeah. So what I wanted to look at is starting about a third of the way down are the list of projects. And what was asked at the finance committee, we've got the numbers that are being recommended. We have notes, and then over towards the right, we've combined from a couple of other sheets that we have how much of that funding is grant and how much will be coming from the bond. And then also the last three are telling us the percentage of the project coming from our three funds, our general fund, our road fund, and our sewer fund. So basically, we're starting with our current Crafton Boulevard separation, which has been largely expended, but given the time frame and wrapping things up, it is thought that there's going to be about $300,000 of that project that may not pay out until 2023, along with about 20,000 in engineering costs. So I don't know that, there really isn't anything, I think, to question that. But if anybody does have any questions, everybody, go ahead.
I have one immediate question. I see the amounts for each project, and then I see all the way to the right how much is allocated, is covered by grants versus bond, but it looks like the amounts there are for the full project, not for 2023.
I think that what you're going to see is that just that first line is, you're right, that is for the whole thing. Doug had just added that in just before the meeting, and I don't think he had that clear. Most of the rest of these are for the 2023 amount. So basically,
When you get to the bottom and you see what our budget from the bond is for next year, it looks quite high, but a lot of
Right.
that is coming from that
Exactly.
particular project, and it's
Exactly.
not actually in the budget for next year. It's already spent and it's not, that's not an
Absolutely,
accurate
you're
number.
absolutely right. And that's why I said this was a worksheet. So basically of that, like 300, 320, we'll adjust that number. So it'll be like 20% of that 60 or 70,000 instead of 1 million on the bond. So we'll get that updated. Thanks for pointing that out.
Was the bond budget in the far right-hand column then? 'Cause it says, what, 1.9?
That's what I was just saying is
Yeah.
it's
Right.
inaccurate.
Yeah,
Because
it's
that
inaccurate.
includes funds from that Crafton Boulevard project that are already spent, that
Already,
it
yes,
is not
exactly.
in next year's budget.
So if you take a look, what we're trying to do is to figure out how much of the bond
Right?
we're going
So
to
just total up
tap
this.
for 2023, and that's what the header is.
it's-
So that's going to get changed to 60,000 and some change once we calculate this out, because we're what at about 85%. Yeah, 85. So we'll fix that.
Is
Okay.
it in the far column before the notes? Is that the right amount? In the middle
Yeah.
column? Are those the
Yes,
right
so
amounts for
basically right in the
2023?
middle, you've got your 2020, your recommended 2023 budget, 300,000. And what I did was I brought the engineering up next to it, so we didn't have to look down. So you've got a combination of the 300 plus 20. That is likely to, that's what it's going to take to finish out the project in 2023 budget.
And again, we're basing, all this is based on whether the contractor independent gets us their pay applications before a December meeting, how quickly they turn around paperwork. If they're very quick, this number might go down for 2023.
But it's still amount of money that's going to be coming from the bond fund whenever we pay it out. So
From a timing perspective, it doesn't.
John, you look like,
Yeah, so my thoughts were that the they're not labeled here, but it says 2023 funding source amounts, grant and bond. So couldn't you just add all these bond amounts to get what the bond would be paying for? And then if I look at
that's
the,
what we've done at the bottom. We've summed that column, but this line has got the total amount of the entire project. It has the wrong number in it.
okay,
So basically what it should be is something like 250 and 60.
mhm. So then the middle column, which shows the budget 2023 and the engineering segregated.
So that totals 320,000 potentially that will be rolled over into 2023 to finish out the project. A total of $320,000. So you said 80,
I believe it's 85%.
so 85% of the 320.
Some of that's the change order for the lights.
Right, so
intersections,
being a
not all-
being a worksheet, let's just say that we're probably in the grant amount. Somewhere around 2.25.
Sure.
And then we will refine that number, but it's going to be much less.
Yeah, and I'm not even looking, I'm looking past Crafton Boulevard because I'm looking at other things that are easier, like the stairs, which we know was a flat 500,000.
Yes,
And it's saying all next year, we want to budget the total of 500,000, but it's all grant. So that column shows 500 and then 0 for bond amount because it's all coming through the grant.
yes.
But then down below is the pool house. So the pool house is 500 from the bond, 250 from the grant. But then we have 250 budgeted this year and 60,000. I know there's timing issues with
Right.
that.
So you want to, so we're having a general discussion about the whole thing, or do you want to go line at a time?
Yeah, I mean, we did this during the engineers meeting, so really is for the folks that maybe weren't there. What do you guys prefer?
I think my first question is it seems like the most accurate way to approach this, and we can go line by line if that's what people want, but the most accurate way to approach it is to look at those middle columns. Those are the most up to date, and the ones that are on the right that allocate differences between grant and bond, those are still being updated. So
The
some
top
of
one
that
is, the
is,
other ones were done today, and
Yeah.
I did them today based on the numbers that are in the 2023 column.
and that's fair. We'll focus primarily on the middle columns to understand what the most updated budget projections are.
Right. And I think at the end of the day, the biggest takeaway are a lot of the recommendations that are being made are reducing the expenditures for 2023 versus what had been on the worksheets up to this time. Okay. So then the next project is the streetscape that will be running phase 2B and 3. So we're talking landscaping from Dinsmore up to Clearview Extension, and then the streetscape from Baldwick to Noble. And that is, at this point, that's 100%. And then there will be additional in 2024. Doug, can you?
Again, this is a timing issue. There is no true match because we're saying our phase 1 and phase 2A was what we're going to put towards the match. This line, you're going to see expenses and the revenue on the income side stay the same. It's going to be basically a wash. So we could put 700,000, we could put 200,000. They're going to offset each other on the revenue and expense account. So it's really kind of an arbitrary number per se, because it's all covered by grant.
Yeah, so even as I look at the Green Lake Go, we have, that's all grant money, 275 plus the 25, which is 300, but there's nothing in the columns on the right. So it's not showing that it's covered by grants.
Wait a minute.
The Green Lake Go for Steuben and Linden.
As we said, worksheet. So, we'll get those numbers in there. Okay. But the actual amount being proposed is accurate. Yep.
Above the Belvedere turnaround line, down bottom, second column, it's carpet.
Yeah.
Oh, you added that in?
I did. I
Okay.
emailed you today.
Let me finish. Is that we're not really going to be putting, carpet throughout. If this is carpet, flooring, general, right? Pardon me?
Replacing time, community center, library.
I know. Over next door is not carpet. So is that including that space?
No.
The community center?
No carpet over.
Right. But I'm saying
Are they gonna
You
Are we
paint
gonna-
that surface? Yes.
No,
we were going to do a vinyl. In past years, we had talked about doing a durable
And,
vinyl
and
flooring.
that's all gonna be coming out of the bond, whatever we do.
Yes,
Okay.
so we can add that. We can add additional money for the.
Okay, so it wasn't part
So
of it.
it's
No,
would be,
it's not part of it.
Okay, because I,
so we
thank
wanna
you.
call that flooring. And we'll need a large, higher number on that.
The other thing is, do you intend to outsource this, or is this something you intend to bring in-house?
Outsource.
Okay, with regards to like the community center, is it possible that we could buy the material? Right. Okay, thank you.
All right, so if we slide back up, we have our, the, Crafton Boulevard in Clearview, which, should be wrapped up this year and won't have any impact on the 2023 budget. The building facade and roofing, there's some expectation of some rollover. It's largely completed and will probably be largely paid for this year, and it's all. I think there's Doug just left, but we have there was one change order on the facade and roof,
The magistrate.
the magistrate's roof, which has already been approved. Again, the blight remediation, that's all grant money. Green Light Go is that
Be
one
all
is,
grant money.
pardon?
That should be all grant money.
Yeah, but what,
No,
isn't
that's-
there part of
that's
it, the
portion
cars?
of it. It's not
Did you
a
say,
match, like a 15%.
so we'll get that number, but it,
Green light, no.
yeah. So we'll get that correctly filled in.
$225 is the grant amount. And we would be looking at estimated 275 and the engineering at 25.
So our cost would be 75.
Sounds like 100. With a total of 300, we've got two. Yeah, so the engineering is 25, 275 total cost 300. So yes, you're right. That would be, ours would be 75. And then Union Street reconstruction. This is the one where People's Gas will be installing a gas line on that street part of the way. And it's one of the streets that is in not good repair. And it's the concrete street, is that it?
Yes.
Yes. So to redo the whole road, as opposed to having a partial trench essentially, is what's been proposed. And this would be our costs. So the total cost of the project, and then there would be the about 150,000 coming from People's, and our costs would be about 200,000. Any questions, comments on that one? Nope, we're good. Good. So then we get into the Emily and Johnson Street sewer repair, which I know has been discussed in council a number of times throughout the year. That one seems to get more and more expensive every time we turn around. And in order to deal with it, and it will be all bond amount, we are looking at about $380,000.
That was discussed in prior year councils, not this year.
I think it has been discussed this year, or was it just in engineering?
Just in engineering. It's not
So,
discussed.
Rick, could you give us a quick summary?
I believe that was it was some time ago, so we'll get a recap, but I believe that was in the engineering update that of all projects that
Right.
engineers gave
That's
to
what I
all
thought.
council back in March or so.
Yeah.
Early spring.
Our Johnson Street, Emily sewer thing, just high level. Yeah, no, we've got the numbers here, but just.
I can
remind
jump
me
in.
What it is.
In 2016, our CCTV realized that we had a break in the line. At that point, a decision was made to see if we could get grant funding for it. Grant funding never came, but when we were going to make the repair ourselves, the line had totally collapsed, and therefore we had to do exploratory digging, and we've got a plan, and the plan is $370,000. That's rerouting a line, adding an additional line, and then lining
for the line.
another section of line. So it's a very complicated process, but had action been taken in 2016, wouldn't be in it now.
To add to that, this is complicated because it goes on private property and impacts private residences that are at risk if we don't address the issue.
Right, and I think those lines actually go under structures,
Yes.
so.
Yes, and then the update is that, so originally we looked at abandoning the line completely and then rerouting it through the existing piping. So this sort of cuts off a diagonal. So right now the water comes down one street, turns and goes on the other street. So this is sort of a diagonal cut. And it was put there because the residents along the upper and lower and the upper street flow down to it. So instead of going out to the front, so that's why it impacts the residents, and we were looking to reroute those lines, and most of them were working, and there are a few that are going to require grinder pumps and some significant inconvenience and potentially cost over time to the residents at no fault of their own. So the idea was go back and look at saving the line. And so that's sort of a piecemeal, because we can't even get the camera through the line because it's collapsed on one end and collapsed on the other end. So the idea was to go in and start fixing these collapses and advance the sewer line, or advance the televising to see, really how bad this is. So it turned out when we fixed these collapses, we installed manholes because that gives us future access without having to go back down and dig them up again. And it turned out there's a nice long section that we still can line. That we didn't know that because we couldn't access it. So the two manholes we installed, we're getting a price now to line that as quickly as we can. So that what we're going to do now is start cutting down the length of sewer that's going to be expensive to repair. So there are several locations beneath structures that we're not going to be able to relocate, but we're going to have to find some kind of repair beneath it. So we think that is doable now, and that's the path. That's the cost estimate to do that and to finally end the issues associated with the North Emily and Johnston sewer line.
And so from our 2022 budget, from what you said, we have actually done work on this and we have incurred some costs that we don't have, and that was this year?
We just approved the one.
Oh, okay, okay,
Tonight.
okay. And so that would come under additional expected that we'll add in on this worksheet for the 2022, just to give it a more accurate picture. Okay. All right. So then
Question.
go ahead.
With regards to those expenses, are they going to come out of the bond fund or are they going to come out of the general sewer fund?
We're still talking.
The
about-
incidental,
Yeah, Johnson and
Entry.
Emily.
right?
Everything for the Johnson Street has been coming out of bond fund.
And my question is, moving forward, is that how we want to look at that project versus coming out of the sewer
Well,
fund?
it says it's coming out of the sewer fund.
But
100%. On the sheet, on the far right, it says 100% on the sewer fund.
No, well,
It's got
basically,
both.
it's what, well, it is 100% sewer project, which has to do, these numbers have to do with what repayment which funds will be doing the repayment over time on the bond. And since that project is 100% sewer, when we're doing our debt payment, they'll be when they calculate that amount.
The sewer fund cannot handle this repair, because in the sewer fund budget, there's actually a Bell's Run. There's a collapse in the line along Bell's Run, and that is about 200,000, 250. So that is going to be coming out of the sewer fund. The sewer fund does not have
For
money.
program year 2023.
Yes.
Yes, which we'll see. And the next, for the next meeting, we'll have the general budget. So yes, this percentage really is used to calculate bond repayment. So then the next one is the Public Works, which is kind of a big one. What we had been seeing was a number of 850,000 plus 95,000 for engineering. And what we
I know. I was like, what is that?
well, it's fallen apart. I just ordered a new one, but it just suddenly started making weird noises. Anyway, so there's been a lot of discussion about how to get that number down. And we talked a little bit about that at finance and then at again at engineering. Doug and Dave Killen, our public works supervisor, we're had discussion, and I happened to be there, so the three of us had kind of a meeting about it. And what's being recommended is that we budget 400,000, and that we look at developing a plan where we get the utilities in and look at what else we can do with internal resources. So the idea is that Public Works and our manager will be getting the plans, and then we'll develop a plan that will come in front of council to look at what we can accomplish with 400,000. Plus, we'll have to have some help from Gateway, so we've got the 25,000 in there. Now, again, this is, a recommended amount of budget, which is more than a 50% reduction. But to spend any of it is still going to have to come, the plan's going to have to come in front of council for approval.
Any
Questions? All right. Moving on. So then we've got the stairs, which is 100% grant. And then the pool house. Doug, do you want to talk to us about the pool house?
So this is a project that's going to span into multiple years. We applied through DCNR, which is a maximum of 500,000. They told us that we should go into another group, which is a federal funding group, that we would get, that we could get upwards of that 250,000 match. So right now, the project is around 750,000. This is an estimated construction cost. We hope, but not guaranteed, that through the federal program, we would be reimbursed up to that 750, so that our grant funds would increase. But that's what the state suggested we do, and all indications have suggested that we'll get that additional money, but it's not been approved. 250 has been approved.
But the pool house would be complete before the 2024 season. Correct?
That is the goal.
Okay. questions on that one, moving forward? So then we have Linwood Noble Park, where we were awarded a $250,000 grant. The project looks to be 500,000. We applied for a couple of other grants that we did not get, hoping to decrease our bond match. The one thing about this is that in discussing at the engineering meeting, they were talking about that there are other opportunities to apply in the next cycles to see if we can get some more money. And this grant has we have up to 3 years to actually execute on the grant. So this is an area where right now on the worksheet, we have the entire cost listed, but it might be something that council might want to take off of the 2023 budget and give 2023 a go at securing more grants. So I think this is one you probably want to talk about.
Given
Was there something you were going to say, Doug? No?
we remember this topic, there were several votes on this topic, of breaking the tie by the mayor. And so it's something that I'm looking at it, obviously a good project, but I think if there's the ability to get grant money in 2024, 2023, 2025, let's push for that versus forcing us to do the project in 2023.
I agree. If we have the opportunity to get more, then we should at least try, at least for 1 year before we jump in with the extra expenses.
Any other comments? So then we would, as I said, worksheet. So in the next version, shall we, we're in agreement to take this off of the 2023 budget?
That's what I'm recommending, which is the rest of.
Okay,
I concur.
all right. We will do that. So then we have, again, very similar thing happening with Broadhead. We've been awarded quite a significant amount of money. Again, multiple years, more than the 3, right, Rick? Yeah. It could potentially be even more than the 3. And a lot of what is not being funded is the road improvements that and these are mostly roads that are in really bad shape. And again, in the engineering meeting, there was discussion about other sources that could help us fund some of that. So in discussions, it looked like, and of course, as a separate item, you'll be talking in the next meeting or 2 about whether to accept the grant. Engineering is recommending that you do accept the grant. And likely what would happen is we would have to prepare bids towards the end of next year. And so that's why we have a $50,000 allocation for bid preparation and leaving the rest of that out of the 2023 budget. And then both of the pieces for Broadhead or Belvedere, I'm sorry. When I saw this, we had them together. Those are both intertwined with the Broadhead project. So again, we haven't put on this worksheet, we haven't put anything in for those parts of the project either. Anybody have any questions, thoughts? We're all okay with this?
So I think based on this meeting, you're saying to take off the Linwood and Noble Park,
Yep.
400, or the cluster house, if you can see it, but 500,000, I think it was. And then everything else is okay?
I haven't heard anything else. We're going to be increasing that carpet line that Doug just put in, and then we'll be making sure
Sure.
of fixing the 2023
Right.
funding sources.
Mhm.
And so what we'll do is prior to the next meeting, we will have this updated, get it to council. And then what we'll have is the financial consultants looking at this will then be able to adjust what the remaining balance
Great.
in the bond
Or the
fund
bond.
will be, so that you'll have an idea of what's, what's left there. And, just as a reminder, a lot of the heavy lifting that the bond fund has been doing has been that we've been able to self-fund the payouts ahead of being reimbursed. So that is, there's on any given day, there might not be that much money left, showing in that account, because that's the way that bond fund is also being used.
Two things. One is just a reminder to council. We are going to wait on the Linwood and Noble Park, which I agree with. We can continue to look for additional funding sources, but we did accept the first grant, so we can't delay that indefinitely. We will have to be prepared to
3 years.
use that within the next 3 years, or we'll give ourselves a negative reputation if we get that back. So just a reminder to ourselves that we can't defer it indefinitely, but I do think we can continue pursuing grants and hopefully be successful. The second thing is, I have just a question for the finance committee. Do we have a target or a maximum for what we think is a reasonable amount to be allocating to the bond in 2023?
I think that how do I put this? What we have done is significantly reduced what we're targeting to take, to use the bond funding for in 2023. However, these projects that are on here that you will be able to see next week that there's still a significant portion left that will meet in 2024 and beyond, these projects that we have on tap where we are going to need funding for matches and that sort of thing. So we'll have a more accurate number of what will be, what the balance in the bond fund will be. And, I don't think that there's any problem with any of these, because these are all items that have been on the outlook since the bond was secured. Because when we went out for the bond funding, these projects plus a number of other projects that have been dropped off entirely were modeled as examples of what we were going to do. So there's nothing that we're, really asking for here that is substantially different from the original modeling.
I think what would be helpful is, updating this too, as
And that's
This is
gonna take some
I know.
time. But given the work that we're doing here, then the consultants and Doug we can get that
Yeah,
one updated
Because
as
this
well.
shows the remaining bond money, this shows, the.
Right, but it's not accurate because it hadn't been kept up through the year. And in order to meet our goals, to start talking about
Mhm.
our capital expenditure budget, this was, what we were able to make visible. So we'll have that updated and the income portion and remaining balance, because these numbers that we're seeing here that are pulling as far as transfers, those are the numbers before any of that has been updated or any of the projects that we've pulled from 2023. So we'll have cleaner updated stuff by the next meeting. And that's why we're starting so early.
Coletta, are we gonna have some graphical reports. So when we get to an opportunity to present these documents in a public forum, that way we can have like bar charts or pie charts or however we want to, your committee decides to display the information. I just think
That's what we did that last year, if you recall.
yeah, I think it was a good product, and it helps people understand where things are going and where we're heading. So
Yep.
thank you.
All right.
Any more questions?
All right.
So can you just talk about the next meeting?
Okay, so the next meeting, I would expect that we'll have this cleaned up for another review. But the next meeting, we will actually be looking at, and I think what we'll be able to send out the general fund budget. And we'll look at that in a little more depth. Most of the stuff that is on that is it's just what, pretty much the same, the cost of doing business. We don't have any, I meant to ask you earlier, we don't have any new vehicle purchases or anything on any of those budgets?
111, yes.
Oh, that's right. Oh, I was thinking that was, yeah. So that's technically that's capital expenditure too, is it?
No, well, it's we have it labeled as capital in the line item. the
Right.
operating fund,
Right,
but it's not coming out of the budget.
right,
I think this exercise was really about the bonds in the project.
right,
Because that's
Mhm.
where the most questions the finance committee had.
right.
And then the next meeting is going to be more general fund and a mixture of all of it. This was preliminary and just part of our agenda now, but the budget official kickoff is at our next meeting at 6:30.
Right.
So we'll be starting. our-
So we're doing our our regular meeting starting at 6:30
Mhm.
and budget after that.
No, budget
No.
at 6:30
Oh, budget at
and
6:30.
then
Okay.
meeting starting at 7:15.
So we're only allowing 45 minutes.
Well, I think they roll in to each other. So if it goes longer, then it goes longer.
Okay.
That's on the schedule right there.
Mhm.
Heather.
Yeah, well, there's no time. Yeah, there's dates. On this one, but okay. 6:30. All right. And then what we will do is Doug, there shouldn't be any problem in getting the general budget. That's really in pretty good shape at this point, so we could probably send it out well ahead and invite questions even ahead of the next meeting.
Right.
Okay?
Okay. Anything else for finance and administration?
That should be enough.
Okay, sounds good. All right, community structures, services, and infrastructure, Ms. Pompello.
Sure, we have a lot on the agenda today, but some of these should go pretty quickly. First item is the 2022 Crafton Borough Operations and Maintenance Sewer Repairs. Bids were received and opened on September 20th, 2022 for the O&M sewer repairs. It is recommended that contract A, manhole to manhole lining, be awarded to the lowest responsible bidder, Jet Jack Incorporated, in the amount of $135,010. And contract B, spot lining, be awarded to the lowest responsible bidder, Robinson Pipe Cleaning Company, in the amount of $68,590. These monies have been appropriately budgeted for in the sewer fund. So with that, I'm making a motion to award the 2022 O&M sewer repairs contract A to Jet Jack Incorporated in the amount of $135,010, and contract B to Robinson Pipe Cleaning Company in the amount of $68,590.
Ms. Ballenbacher, seconds. Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
All right, next item, the CDBG year 49 resolutions. The borough needs to pass a concurring resolution for year 49 community development block grant projects. The first project is the replacing sidewalk on Duncan Avenue from Steuben to Glen. The borough is requesting $33,600 in grant funds for a total project that is estimated at $41,100.
And as you read this motion, I do have an error here. It is year 49. The motion says 48, but it's year 49.
Right, and this is a project that was previously anticipated. This is funds that are done through the COG, and we waived our portion this year. We collaborated with Carnegie and we deferred our project funded through the COG until next year. So that's what this project is referring to. So with that, I will make a motion to adopt resolution number 2022-024, formally requesting grant funds from year 49 CDBG funding for Duncan Avenue sidewalk replacement project.
Second.
Mr. Lavasser, any discussion? I've had a resident request this to be done, so there is resident interest in this project too. Any other? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Right, the third item is new, but hopefully will also be a fairly simple one. This is streetlights, the installation of the 8 remaining streetlights along the Crafton Boulevard streetscape project at a cost of $52,000. So this is something that this council has discussed in the past. And the cost to install those 8 remaining streetlights is substantially cheaper if we do it now while the construction is currently underway. That cost will go up substantially if we decide to come back and add those later. We would have to do new construction, put out a new bid process. There are substantial costs associated. So the engineering committee discussed this and made the recommendation that we proceed with the much lower cost to simply get it done now while we're already doing construction. So that cost now would be $52,000. And with that, I would like to make a motion to approve the change order to Independent Enterprises for the installation of 8 streetlights along Crafton Boulevard in the amount of $52,000.
Second.
Mr. Chandler, second. Any discussion?
Where's that funding coming from? And is this for where phase 2 was working out?
Yes. Yeah, and so part of the process is we have a couple grants out there. And if we get the grant, then there's an opportunity to work with finance to try and reimburse the bond for those funds, because we have other areas around the borough where we may be looking to do the same. So basically at this point, we're buying inventory and we can work through those details.
Right, we won't know if we get the additional grant funds that we've requested. We won't know until after that construction finishes. But at that point, again, the cost will be much higher. If we do get the grant funding after we've done the installation of these 8 streetlights, based on the way those grant applications were worded, we believe we can still apply the grant funding if we get it to, continue to other areas. So we would still be able to use the funds and reduce our costs elsewhere.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Right, the next item, the Broadhead Sewer Separation Award Letter. The borough's GROW grant application for funding for the approved by Alcoasand Board of Directors. This is oddly worded. The borough's GROW grant application for funding was approved, and the Alcoasand Board of Directors have awarded the borough $3,738,400 in grant funding, which is 81% of the determined eligible total project costs of $4,633,478.72. This was discussed a little bit earlier. The engineer referenced this in his update. Getting 81% of that project covered by Alcosan for all of the eligible project costs is really good for us. It is less than we were anticipating. They have changed their models, so we were hoping for more. We expected more and we got a bit less, but we are still getting a really good amount of funding from Alcosan and are ahead of a lot of our neighbor municipalities. For the purposes of tonight, this is just an update. This is the amount of GROW grant funding that we've been awarded. The borough has 45 business days to accept that funding. So this will be on for council approval at our next meeting in on October 27th.
Can you say why we didn't get the full amounts based on the grant review?
Yeah,
The Alcosan has changed their.
Yeah.
You want to.
yeah. So that,
You just said it, but we didn't explain. I don't think he explained why.
so Gateway Engineers had a meeting with Alcosan, and it was disclosed to us in cycle 7 that the supporting model behind the awards changed. When I say the supporting model, that is the hydraulic model, and the model changed because now through the wet weather plan, they have the tunnels, and Mr. Minsterman's been working on this probably 10, 15 years now. And so there's been an incremental process to try to assuage the regulators and to try to move things forward. And now that the funding's been secured for the tunnels and everything's working out that way, they've found through their modeling that the efficacy of everybody's projects is lessened because the tunnels are going to do their jobs. However, due to the points of connection that we are a part of, we still have need in the Chartiers Basin. But overall, the models showed the projects went from, for instance, Broadhead went from a 14 million gallon a year removal to or reduction to an 8 million at the point of connection. So we are very confident that we will be removing 14 million gallons. However, the effect felt down at the plant is equivalent to 8 million gallons. So a lot of engineering jargon here. However, the point is Crafton still has very effective projects that they would like to fund. However, Alcosan had to cut out the complete road reconstructions that we had specified. And we had explained to them, listen, the reason why we went with whole road reconstructions was because in some of these areas where we have bricks, the cost to do a complete brick reconstruction was double to triple the cost there. So they understood that, but they said, listen, Crafton, we're trying to help you out here, wink, wink. You have to understand that if we have a $7 million project here, your percentage that you're going to get is less, and therefore you will get less than the 3.7 million because the efficacy, the economics of the project changed. All right. So therefore, you know, we appreciate Alcosan's efforts to try to get the most funding to us. So yes, they took out the road reconstruction, but with regards to the overall aspect of the stormwater and sewer management components, they are paying 81%. But you know, we are now faced with trying to close the gap. And again, some of the estimates that we had prepared had contingencies. There is an opportunity for us to go out to bid to see what the market bears, like we did on other projects. For instance, Woodlawn and Fountain came out estimated costs. We thought the market would have bid out like 2 million, but we came back to 1 million when we did this. So we have opportunity here to try to access more funds that are coming available through the Fed and state grant programs. For instance, the H2O program is opening up that hasn't been opened up in a few years. So Alcosan saying, listen, we love you, Crafton. We're going to give you as much money as possible. We want you to use those grant funds to go to these other granting agencies to show that you have a great project, but we want them to chip in too, essentially. All right,
It's really well into the next item, though.
Mhm.
We did not get the full amount of funding we hoped we would get from Alcoasand. But that Broadhead project is not on our budget for next year, so we have time to continue looking into funding opportunities. The engineering committee discussed this a lot this week, and we'll continue discussing that and looking for additional grant opportunities to try to cover that gap and be able to fund the street reconstruction along with the sewer repairs. Some of the upcoming grant opportunities that we've identified just across the board are listed here on the agenda. These are some of the things that the borough is looking into for various different projects we have in mind. The DCNR trail feasibility grant will be due in October, and that's one that the engineer is looking into. That could cover a trail feasibility study or trail improvements along Clearview. There's also a multimodal grant that will be due in November, and that's something that we can pursue in application to the phase 2 and 3 Crafton Boulevard streetscape improvements. There is an H2O grant due in December that we can pursue as a match for the Broadhead Grow grant. And then there's also a small water and sewer grant also due in December that we can pursue as a match for the Broadhead Grow grant. And those are a list of things that have been assembled so far, but there will be more that we'll continue looking into next year. Comments, questions?
There was one thing that I recalled hearing at the engineering meeting when Alberto was talking that might be relevant for the rest of council to understand, because we've been talking about these street reconstructions as though it's a nice to have, but Alberto showed quite a number of places where the way the current roadway is, that without a full reconstruction, the water that was supposed to be coming out would not flow to the places that, yep.
correct.
Right, essentially, if we put in new places for the water to flow into, but the road dips on the other side,
Right.
then it will be
Or
an
that there's
ineffective
places
project.
where the low spot is in front of where the new sewer.
Yeah, and
would
we
be.
actually had that experience up on Clearview and Harris, and we used that as an example in our conversation with Alcoasand. And they understood that, and we, think that Gateway did actually a very nice job in that presentation to Alcoasand. But again, going back to, the crux of the issue is the change in funding model that they've implemented now.
Right, and I think the only reason that I brought this up is that, as we talk about these, small water and sewer, certainly what we're looking for is funding for some of that road reconstruction, and Gateway will be making the case that it's critical to being able to maximize the effectiveness.
Especially a lot of these roads are brick, which doesn't allow for the right drainage.
I did want to add that just rubbing the salt in the wound was that what they did allocate for paving funding is an asphalt trench, the width of the excavation to install this new sewer line down the middle of a brick street.
Right.
So that's their level of even normal, in-kind restoration. There isn't one. They're basically saying almost zero.
They'll cover what they've taken out.
With
And not even bring it back up to where it
Right,
was.
to its original street. So anyway, that's just an indication of what's happening relating to the restoration.
Yeah, and Rick, do you want to just, some of your other clients are neighboring municipalities, Upper St. Clair, Bridgeville, everybody at that projects. Can you just speak to that for a second?
Yeah, it's the same set of rules. So everyone is sort of saying that, they didn't get what they expected. And I think it's, from a practical standpoint, there's only so much money in the fund. So I think they're just saying, hey, we think we can squeeze this from the municipalities, because ultimately they're not going to say no to a substantial amount of money versus, just not taking the grant. So I think they just played the card, and I think most people are going to go along with it. And so they'll save money from each individual grant, which allows them to do more grants possibly.
Multimodal?
The multi-municipal zoning project update, our consultant has delivered their first of their 3 phases. They've completed their diagnostic phase, and they delivered a report to the borough and to the steering committee. That draft report was circulated to all of council. The steering committee met this past week to review the comments that were received. Comments were overwhelmingly very positive. There was some discussion that was held between Crafton and Ingram steering committee members, but overall it was very positively received, and there were a lot of positive comments that added additional value. So that consultant is doing an updated version of their diagnostic report that will be delivered to us by October 20th. And at that point, it will be made publicly available, be put on the website, and they will be doing, along with that update to the diagnostic report, they will be giving us an executive summary that pulls out the most important information, generally from the front end of the report, and will be available also for an easier to use item for the community. Although we'll make both available. We'll make the full report available on the website as well. With that, they're going into the second phase of their project, which is they will be starting to write some recommended improvements to our code. And our next steering committee will talk about what that looks like and when the next public deliverable or public viewing event will be. They do have in their scope to have some kind of public outreach or public informational campaigns. If there are any questions on that, we can take questions, or we'll pass it over to Mr. Levesser for the final item.
All right, and actually, Doug, you and I chatted before the meeting. Do you want to just take this, please? Talk about what you found about. No, no.
Well, I don't think there's anything really to report. Gateway is reviewing the intersection, and we're just waiting on further information to bring to the engineering committee.
All right, thank you.
All right, communication, recreation, and community events. Mr. Marks isn't here. The upcoming community events will go through at the end of the meeting. Newsletter, Ms. Perry and Ms. Polenbacher.
So the newsletter went to the printers earlier this week, and I'm expecting that it should hit the mail, be put in the mail mid to late next week, and hopefully in our mailboxes by next weekend.
Great. Great. All right, thank you. Commission vacancy, Mr. Chandler.
Yes, so not a ton to report since last meeting. I am happy to say, though, that we have had a couple of applications since the last meeting, which is great. Ms. Bolenbacher and I are working on locking down some interviews for those. And with that, again, if anybody is interested in applying for any positions, we do still have a few available that are listed on the website. And they are, you can easily apply on those at craftonborough.com/commissions. And with that, what we currently have left are an alternate seat on the Civil Service Commission, an alternate seat on the Zoning Hearing Board, a library board, rec board, and upcoming at the end of the year, we have a zoning hearing board. And that is all.
Thank you. Okay. Council of Governments, COG, Mr. Riddell.
Hello, nothing to report. Next COG meeting is next Thursday. Thank you.
And where's the location? Ingram.
Ingram.
Yeah. Okay, so it's very close for people here. You can all walk if you're interested, and I think it starts at 6:30, is it? 6:30, okay. And they require the RSVP, so if you're interested, events, but it is close. All right, community announcements. The upcoming budget workshop and council meeting, which we just spoke about, is our next meeting, October 27th, with the budget workshop at 6:30 and the council meeting following at 7:15. The third annual Crafton Audio Tour will run October 22nd to the 31st. On October 22nd only, from 6:30 to 9:30, donations of non-perishable food will be accepted and donated to the Crafton Ingram Food Pantry. The tour will begin at Crafton Elementary School. If you'd like further information, visit the Borough website. Spooktacular Haunted Mini Golf will be open, weather permitting, Fridays and Saturdays through October 29th. Stop down for and have some spooky family fun for $2 per person to play from 7 to 9. And the donations go to, or the $2 go to the Crafton Library. Is that correct? Yes. Okay. The annual tradition of trick or treating will be observed in Crafton on October 31st from 6 to 8. The police and the fire department will be on patrol to enforce the safety of those participating. Election Day is coming up on Tuesday, November 8th from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Make sure to check your polling location as those did change in May of this year. The other thing that Mr. Minsterman had mentioned is we do have the ribbon cutting for Crafton Boulevard happening on Friday, October 28th at 10 a.m. And the community is invited. It will be outside, and potentially some of the students from the school will also be participating in the event. Right. Anybody else have any announcements?
Doug, with regards to the north end of Clearview, intersecting Josephine Rogers on that, could you, from my understand that there's,
Our goal is to be out of there by Halloween. We hope to have it paved and talking with him this morning, everything is on track to meet that deadline.
thank you.
Any others? Okay. Public comment. At this time, citizens may address the Crafton Borough on any issue. Only residents and taxpayers will be permitted to address the council. Speakers will be permitted to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes. Groups of people for a maximum of 5. Please sign in or raise your hand on Zoom and state your name and physical address for the record. If you're here, we have the sign-in sheet here. Anybody here? All right. Anybody on Zoom? I don't see anybody. So with that, meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
So we do have executive session. Yeah, I don't know how you do that. We did it last time. And they can't get in. Too. And stop the, yes. Stop the. Don't tell me. I'm recording all of them. Don't say anything. Right, good job. Don't say anything, but Doug, you know I record, so it's.